إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. First and foremost, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We continue with the book Kitab Tawheed by Al-Mujaddid Shaykhana Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimullah ta'ala. And we are upon the Babun min ash-shirki iradatul insan bi'amalihi ad-dunya. That from the acts of shirk is to perform a righteous deed for a worldly gain. So before we continue, let's try to understand this word righteous deed. Amal salih, doing a good deed. Firstly, if I was to ask, what is a good deed? What do you think a good deed is, Hashim? Allah is pleased with. So you're doing something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. We said this is a good deed. But when it comes to righteous deeds, they must have two conditions, two sharts. One, it must be sincere. There must be ikhlas, sincerity towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and meaning it must be free from riyah, free from showing off, free from anything else other than pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the first condition. The second condition for a righteous deed is that it is done according to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And if it is not done according to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then what is the opposite of a Sunnah? What do you think the opposite of a Sunnah is? So something we're doing according to what the Prophet ﷺ has told us, what is mentioned in the Quran. What is the opposite? What do we call something? So what do we call something new? What's the word we use? What do you hear a lot? What do we say? Innovation. What's innovation in Arabic? So the opposite to Sunnah is bid'ah. So if it's not according to the Sunnah, then it is something new and it's an innovation, it is a bid'ah. So these are two conditions, sincerity, ikhlas, and that according to the Sunnah, then it is known as a righteous deed. So here, this bab is saying in the beginning that a person is doing a righteous deed, but it is from the acts of shirk. Why is it from the acts of shirk? Because he is doing it for a worldly gain. Because he is doing it for a worldly gain, this is what either it is going to fall into shirkul akbar and shirkul asghar. So now let's try and understand when will it be shirkul akbar, major shirk, and when will it be minor shirk. Any things of why? So you're doing a deed. For example, let's say you are seeking knowledge. Seeking knowledge is a righteous deed, right? Seeking knowledge, we know that the one who is an alim, who studies the deen, is the difference between him and the lay person is like the moon and the stars. So seeking knowledge is something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. So now, how can seeking knowledge be your downfall? How can it fall into shirkul akbar or shirkul asghar? So meaning is exactly what you said. When it's fully, that action which you are doing, that deed which you are doing, when it is solely, let's say I'm seeking knowledge for the whole sake of an imam position in masjid, for the whole sake of being a khatib, for the whole sake of wealth or a status or a position. This is the reason why I am seeking knowledge, and this is the only reason why I'm seeking knowledge. Not for Allah, not for nothing else, just for that position, then this is shirkul akbar. But I'm seeking it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but in there, I'm doing it for the position, a status, an imam job, a role, but that's one of the reasons why I'm doing it. Then this is shirkul asghar. And it's what we mentioned before, it is a hidden shirk. Because it is something in the heart that is not apparent. When somebody is seeking knowledge, or somebody is giving a lecture, or somebody doing a khutbah, or somebody leading the prayer. You do not know what the intentions are. Are they doing it sincerely for Allah? Is there ikhlas in it? Or are they doing it just to please the people? It's like what we mentioned about, for example, the one who recites the Quran beautifully. Is he doing that to please the people, or is he doing it to please Allah? If he is doing it to please the people, then there is minor shirk in that. If he is doing it just to please Allah, then that is what we call a righteous deed. So there must be sincerity. This is the main condition. Shirk al-Akbar, if it is purely done for a worldly gain. Shirk al-Asghar, if part of it is done for a worldly gain. For example, giving the adhan. The one who gives the adhan purely for the sake of being given salary, given a wage. That's the reason why he is performing it. He is using it as a job, not as something he is doing to perform for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Leading the salah, the 5 daily prayers, being an imam, being a teacher, purely for the money, not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this is where it falls into where you are loving or you are chasing after the money rather than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is when it falls into minor shirk. Al major shirk. Kufr only. There's basically no al before it. It's just kaf, ka, fa, and ra. So basically, if somebody is performing shirk or does shirk, we class them as a kafir or because they fall out the fold of Islam. They're interlinked. But the only difference is a kafir says a shahada to come into Islam, but the one who performs shirk just seeks repentance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not a condition that he must say ashhadu la ilaha illallah and re-enter into Islam. No, what we say is the shirk is something which has made him fall out of the fold of Islam, meaning it is somebody who is going towards Jahannam for life. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stipulated if they seek repentance before they die, then they come back into the fold of Islam. There's no condition like the condition of kufr. There's a difference in the condition, but the ruling on them is the same, that they both fall out of the fold of Islam. It's like, for example, somebody who goes out for jihad, but the whole purpose is not him going out to be a shaheed, it is so he can gain some money from the booty. You know, like when the war happens and whatever is left, the one who wins keeps all of that. So the sole reason why they are going out is for that booty. This falls into minor shirk or major shirk, depending on what they are going there for. Yeah. Because of the intention. That the day is more of showing to the people that I'm going for this and I'm going for that. Because this is why we said this chapter that we're looking at, Amal ad-Dunya and Riyah, the difference is Riyah is trying to get the applause of people, trying to get people to tap you on the back, for example. You know, trying to get status in people's eye, whereas this is trying to get physical, tangible things in your hand. So a lot of the time, this is the hypocrites. The hypocrites from the outside, this generally, like this what we are talking about now, is like the hypocrites. The ones who on the outside are showing themselves as good Muslims. We are going for jihad. We are coming to the masjid to pray. We are leaders and we are teachers and we are imams and we are giving khutbahs and we are writing books and we are doing lectures and we are doing this, right? But to the forefront, we are showing we are good Muslims. We are people who are doing it for ikhlas and we fearful, might shed a few tears, etc. But in our heart, the whole purpose is there's something for the dunya we are seeking, the wealth. Maybe we are not happy, increase my wage. Yes, certain aspects of it, you need wealth, you need status, you need that wealth to survive. You need a salary to survive. But it is what is your intention behind it? Are you doing it solely for that wage? Or is it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who are you doing it for first? This is the main thing. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَوْلِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى مَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا وَزِينَتَهَا نُوَفِّي إِلَيْهِمْ أَعْمَالُهُمْ فِيهَا وَهُمْ فِيهَا لَا يُبْخَسُونَ. Whoever desires the life of the world and its glitter, to them we shall pay in full the wages of their deeds therein, and they will not be deprived. This is regarding those people who want just this dunya, this life. Allah said in Surah Baqarah, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana. That the people will say, Oh Allah, grant me goodness in this life. And that's all they want. But they will get that. They will get goodness in this life. But they will not get no goodness in the akhirah. Because they are chasing after the wealth of this life, status of this life. They are chasing after this dunya. This, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here, they will get this dunya, but they will not get no portion of the hereafter. The hereafter will be away from them. And when they get this dunya, it is a test for them. So they will be given wealth, they will be given a status, they will be given a position. Now that test is, what are they going to do with that? They were doing it for the dunya, now what are they going to do with that? And then they say, they are those for whom there is nothing in the hereafter but the fire, and worthless are the deeds they did therein, and of no effect is that which they used to do. And the general meaning of this ayah is, Allah declares that whoever is attached to the worldly life, making it their ultimate objective, intending it in all their righteous deeds and paying no heed to the hereafter, will be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for their deeds in this life, if He so wills, and the hereafter. However, such a person will have no reward to show for in the hereafter, because all of that which they wanted, they will get it in this life. And this is what we mentioned about Bani Israel, the Yahud, the Jews. All they wanted was this life. They wanted status in this life, wealth in this life. They wanted positions in this life. They didn't care about the hereafter. And this is a difference between a Muslim. They want the hereafter. And that's all they strive for, the hereafter. For example, the Sahabas, many of them did not even want nothing from this dunya. They only cared about the akhirah. They would dig graves in their rooms and lay in them just to remind themselves that death is going to come. Just to remind themselves that this dunya is just for a matter of moments. The Prophet ﷺ would sleep on a straw mat that would leave marks. And Umar once came and said, Ya Rasulullah, you are the leader of the Muslims. Look at the Bani Israel, Yahud and Nasara, they have everything. They have wealth, they have position. Why don't you ask Allah? What does He say? I don't care about this dunya. We are only travelers in this world. We care more about the akhirah. That is the final destination. That is what we care about. So we striving just for this dunya. As a Muslim, that's not what we should be doing. Yes, we want this dunya. We want the wealth of this dunya. That's why we say, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasan wa fil akhirati hasan wa qina adhaban nar. Oh Allah, give me goodness in this life. So yes, you ask for the goodness in this life, but you do not barter with your akhirah. You do not barter with your salah. You do not leave off your siyam in Ramadan. You do not leave off giving your zakat. You do not leave off giving sadaqah. You do not leave off taking care of the orphans. You do not leave off doing righteous deed sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if the dunya comes with it, the dunya comes with it. Remember we said, when we talked about qadr, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, be happy. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give, still be happy. Why? Because when Allah gives, He is testing you. And when He does not give, He is what? Checking, are you going to be patient or not be patient? When He takes from you, He is checking, are you going to be patient or not be patient? Or is this dunya going to overwhelm you? That is what, when we say we are Muslims, that is what we mean. That this dunya we keep in our hands, and we keep the akhirah, we keep Islam, we keep our deen on our heads like a crown. And if anything from our deen is affected, we leave off this dunya. We can throw it. We do not care. Why? Because we do not have love for this dunya. And we focus on our deen. And this is how the Sahabas were. For example, we come across a Sahabi by the name of Rabi'a ibn Ka'b. This Sahabi was somebody who would come and bring water to the Prophet ﷺ, bring his sandals for salah, and just do any chores that the Prophet ﷺ wanted. Prophet ﷺ said to him, "Oh Rabi'a, ask what you want and I will give to you." By the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see, he did not want a worldly gain. He didn't want wealth. He didn't want status. He could have said, "Make me the leaders of the people of Medina or Mecca. I want a high position." He was a slave, meaning somebody who was a khadim, who took care, who was there for the Prophet ﷺ. He could have easily said, "Increase my ranks, give me wealth, give me some gold, get me, I want a nice piece of clothes, I want a new house, I want cars, I want this, I want." He could have said wealth, but rather he says, "I want to be with you, murafaqatu fil Jannah. I want to be by your side in Jannah." What is he doing? He wants akhirah. He wants the hereafter. They don't care about this worldly life. So their deeds that they were doing were not to please people. They were not showing off. They were not for worldly gains, but rather they were to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were to gain a higher status in Jannah. So everything they did was for Jannah. وفي الصحيح عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: تعس عبد الدينار، تعس عبد الدرهم، تعس عبد الخميسة، تعس عبد الخميلة، إن أعطي رضي وإن لم يعطى سخط. تعس meaning perish, la'nat, woe to those. Abdul dinar, the abd is usually son, so meaning those that have so much love, and the slave to the dinar, the dirham, the money, the wealth. The slaves are the ones who like to wear those beautiful clothes. Here it's like a velvet garment. Khamisa, a type of luxurious and expensive clothing, meaning velvet, silk, that kind of clothing. Al Khamila, a richly embroidered garment, meaning they want to wear the best just to show the people. Just to show the people, I am rich, I have a status, I have a position. These are those that are slaves to that, meaning they are slaves to this dunya. The ones who are slaves to this dunya, Prophet ﷺ is saying, perish to those people. Because all they want is this dunya. Then he says, let such a person perish and relapse. And if he is pierced with a thorn, let him not find anyone to take it out for him. Glad tidings for him who holds the reins of his horse to strive in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's cause, with his hair unkempt and feet covered with dust. If he is appointed guard duty, he is perfectly satisfied with his post of guarding, and if he is appointed in rear guard, he accepts his post with satisfaction. If he asks for permission before a ruler, he is not permitted, and if he intercedes, his intercession is not accepted. And this hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari, where the meaning of it is, in this hadith, Prophet ﷺ portrays the state of two men. The first is seeking the worldly life, and the other is seeking the hereafter. So the first one who is seeking the worldly life, in this hadith we are being told that when he has been given goodness, he has been given wealth, he has been given status, he is happy. But when he is not given this, he is not satisfied and he is not happy. He is complaining. And the second person who is seeking the hereafter, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, he is satisfied. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give, he is also satisfied. And this all goes back to what we've been mentioning, patience and acceptance of the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are, you could say principles, rules that we need to embody within ourselves and use these throughout our lives, that if something good is going on in my life, maybe it is a trial from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see what am I going to do with this goodness. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you with wealth. Are you going to hold on to it, or are you going to give for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He is the one who gave you? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you so much wealth, are you going to use that wealth for haram things, or are you going to use it for halal things? This is all a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give you, are you going to be like those who start to complain? Are you going to be like those who say, why have I not got this? Or are you going to accept that it's from the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be patient in that? This is what a Muslim believes and goes through. The seeker of the world life is like a slave to it. He is pleased when he receives its bounties, but displeased when he is deprived of them. The Prophet ﷺ invokes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against him not to save him when he is in distress, so that neither attains what he desires, nor is he protected against what he fears. They are enslaved by their desires and are not true slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The signs of people like this is their simplicity and humility and their lowly position in society. So that whenever they request something from their leaders, they are refused. And whenever they intercede on behalf of another, their intercession is not accepted. Still, their final destination is paradise and the best of reward. And these are those who are seen in this dunya as low status people. Why? Because they're not chasing after this dunya. The ones who are not chasing after this dunya, there's all rejection after rejection after rejection for them. They're always put in difficult situations. And this, we say, is also a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this chapter that we just took was regarding those who intend to do good deeds, but only for the sake of this dunya and not for the hereafter. And they are people who are falling into shirk. The next chapter, inshallah, is Babu min at-ta'a al-ulama wal-umara fi at-tahrim ma ahalla Allah aw tahlil ma harramahu faqad ittakhadhahum arbaba. Whoever obeys the scholars and rulers, forbidding what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made permissible and permitting what He has made forbidden, has taken them as lords. And this is what? Declaring something halal haram and declaring something haram halal. This is going to be chapter 37 in the book. What is it in there? Yeah. Same thing. So this one is anyone who comes and says something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated in the Quran or something that is in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they come and they change. They change the halal to haram, or they change the haram to halal. This is what, and you accept it. You agree to it and you accept it. You are now taking those people as your arbab, your Lord. So there's three different type of scenarios we can look at. One is obeying them and firmly believing in their legitimacy. So what they are coming with is 100% correct. Yep, what they have said is halal. We accept. We go against the Quran and the Sunnah. What they have said is correct. This is shirkul akbar, major shirk. Then there is obeying them but not believing the legitimacy of it. They order nor taking it as deen to be followed. A person may obey them for a worldly gain or because of a misconception, a misunderstanding, and this is minor shirk. They don't accept it, they follow, but they do not accept it. And then the other one is, he does not know. He does not know what the other side is. He does not know from the Quran and Sunnah what the actual ruling is, which is many laymen today. So for example, a teacher, me myself, I can say something to you today and you may accept it. I may say, alcohol is halal. You are allowed to drink alcohol. And if somebody has not studied or know about it before, they may think, oh, well, our teacher said it, so it must be halal. This is then goes into those people of ilmul jahl. Ilmul jahl, those people who lack knowledge because of ignorance. So then they will fall into that category of they are not sinful, because they fall into ignorance. Udhr bil jahl. Basically, they are pardoned because of their ignorance. But it is upon every single one of us to study, to ask the questions, anything you feel doubtful in, anything somebody says halal or haram, there must be evidence to back you up. In this deen, remember I said on the very first lessons, there's a principle we must all learn when it comes to dunya, when it comes to deen. I'm going to give you a rough idea about what you to tell me what that principle is. It's basically when is something halal in the deen and when is it haram, and when is something halal in the dunya and when is it haram. What is the principle? Yeah. This is the principle you need to know. So everything in this deen, in this religion, regarding salah, regarding zakat, regarding hajj, regarding saum, everything is haram until proven halal. So when you are saying something is halal, allowed to do in this religion, you need to bring evidence. You need to prove it. So khamar is haram. If I want to make it halal, I need to prove it's halal. Understood? Everything is haram until proven halal. So this is an understanding. And if I was to know alcohol is haram, and because somebody has told me it is no, it is halal because it does not intoxicate you anymore, it's not the same type as it used to be, etc., etc. And I accept it, yeah, I accept your word for it, you are correct. What have I done? I put the Quran and the Sunnah to one side and I've accepted this person's word. So let's look at, for example, what happens today when it comes to the following of the four Imams. For example, all four Imams have said, if a statement comes from the Quran and the Sunnah that goes against what I am saying, reject what I am saying. Yep? Reject what I am saying. They can come with a statement that goes clearly against the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ or what it says in the Quran. But you say, no, 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 no. I do not accept that statement in the Hadith or that statement in the Quran. I'm going with my Shaykh, what he says. With what my Imam says, that is what I'm following. What have you done? Rejected the Quran and the Sunnah and you followed your Shaykh. This is what you are doing. You are making your ulama your arbab. You are making them your lords because you are following what they are saying and not what is legislated. Because all of them have said, reject what I say when it goes against the Quran and Sunnah. And if somebody comes with you and tells you that this is from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and you say, no, 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 I do not accept that. My teacher says something else. This is you going against what is legislated, and you are falling into this chapter that we are studying. And you are falling into shirk because of it. So we'll take that a little bit more, inshallah. So now here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Nisa, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul, wa ulil amri minkum. O you who have believed, obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obey the messenger and those in authority among you. However, as we said, that we follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we follow the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and we follow the wali al-amr, meaning the leader of the Muslimin. We follow what they say. However, they must be in accordance with what is legislated. If they tell you to follow something which is haram, you do not follow. If they tell you to follow something which is legislated, then it is fard that you follow. It is fard that you follow because of this ayah is saying we must follow ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ati'u ulil amr. Follow, obey them, meaning meaning obey them. Obey them when they are calling you towards, for example, salah, when they're calling you towards goodness, when they're calling you towards righteous deeds. You obey them, you follow. You do not reject it. You do not say, who are you to tell me what to do? You understood? So these are following those leaders and you are allowed to follow those leaders. Ibn Abbas, he says, يوشك أن تنزل عليكم حجارة من السماء أقول قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وتقولون قال أبو بكر وعمر. Ibn Abbas said, it may be that the stones are soon to descend upon you from the heavens. I say to you, Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and you are saying to me, Abu Bakr and Umar said. This happened, Ibn Abbas said this statement at a time when it was Hajj. And what happened was, a person came and Ibn Abbas was explaining to him the masla of that if you do not bring an animal to slaughter, right? If you not bring an animal to slaughter, then what you do is you perform Umrah, you finish off the rituals of Umrah, and then you make the niyyah for Hajj Tamattu. So this is the Hajj which is twofold. You perform Umrah first, and then you perform the Hajj separate. And Ibn Abbas was stating what the Prophet ﷺ had taught him. But the person, he said, no. Abu Bakr and Umar, they say you're supposed to perform just the one Hajj, no Umrah. Because they were coming from the angle of when a person comes for Hajj, he should only perform Hajj and not do Umrah. Why? Because then he should come again for Umrah. He shouldn't combine the two together. So he said that you should only perform Umrah. No, you should only perform Hajj. Abu Bakr and Umar are saying this. So Ibn Abbas is getting angry. He's saying, I am telling you what the Prophet ﷺ said, and you are telling me what Abu Bakr and Umar said. Who takes preference? So Ibn Abbas is angry. So who takes preference? It's the Prophet ﷺ or Abu Bakr and Umar. Yes, they are the two best Sahabis amongst us, but it is Abu Bakr who takes the first priority. No, it's the Prophet ﷺ who takes first priority. So this is the argument that Ibn Abbas is making. But we know when we're talking about ijtihad meaning a masala, or it's a new masala or something that they do not have so much information regarding, that the scholars, they will discuss or they will come to an opinion from the knowledge or the amount of knowledge they have or the hadiths that are present to them, they will come to an opinion. So we say this is Abu Bakr and Umar's opinion, radi anhuma. This is their opinion, and if the ijtihad is correct, they will get two rewards. And if the ijtihad is incorrect, they will still get a reward. Why? Because they put the effort in. But when it comes to this masla, for example, whose word do we take? What the Prophet ﷺ said or what Abu Bakr and Umar said? What the Prophet ﷺ said. Because that comes first. That takes precedent over everything else. Like Imam Ahmad, he says, if you know the understanding of a hadith, you have ilm al-hadith, right? You have ilm al-hadith. You understood the chain of narrations. You understood the siyag of the text, what the text is saying. And you know from the chain of narration, this hadith is sahih. Then he mentions, for example, he mentioned the name Sufyan. For example, he says, I am astonished at a people who know the chain of narration of a hadith and its authenticity, but nevertheless follow the opinion of Sufyan, meaning Sufyan al-Thawri. What he is trying to say here is, they understand that this hadith is sahih. They understand it is correct. They understand the Prophet ﷺ has said this. But yet they are going to the opinion of someone else of what is said here. They want to go on the opinions rather than go to the hadith itself. This is why what do we argue all the time? Go to the hadith first. Start with the hadith, then break it down what the opinions of the scholars are. Not the other way around. The fuqaha, the difference with the fuqaha and the muhaddithin, this is why when people say go and study hadith, not fiqh. Because for fiqh, to get to your answer, takes you through 20 different holes. Hadith, to get to your answer, is right at the doorstep. Why? Because for fiqh, you must go to a scholar first. That scholar is going to give an opinion. He's going to give an opinion of a different scholar. That scholar is then going to give an opinion which is linked to this hadith. This hadith is linked to that ayah. Meaning there is like a narration chain. It's going backwards, which ends up at the hadith or the Quran ayah. Where the muhaddithin begin with the hadith and work their way away from it. So they begin from the asal, the position, and then they derive their position. This is why the people who are involved in so much fiqh today, they are just blinded by, oh, I am a Hanbali, oh, I'm a Shafi, oh, I'm a Maliki, oh, I am Hanafi. I can only stay in that realm. I cannot go out of it, or else I will just, my ilm, my knowledge will be all over the place. But the muhaddithin, how come they don't think like that? Why is it that the fuqaha think like that? Why don't the muhaddithin ever think like, oh, I must be following a fiqh or a study, a madhab, and be upon that one madhab all the way through? No. This is why even when we were studying, the teachers who would teach hadith will be like, if you want to go and get confused, go to fiqh. If you want to just come straight to the truth, come here. Why? Because they say, how can the Prophet ﷺ pray 4 ways? How can the Prophet ﷺ have so many different ways of doing things and they are all correct? Did the Prophet ﷺ just sit there and every single day just do different positions in praying, different ways of praying, just to tell the people, yeah, you can pray however you want? The muhaddithin like the opposite. They're like, no, let's just go to the hadith, let's see what the answer is. If we can't find it, then we'll go to the positions of the ulama. But we start with the hadith. And like, for example, what we are taking is those people that make the halal haram and the haram halal. For example, we know when it comes to cutting and slaughtering an animal, we must do it the Islamic way. Yes? You slaughter the Islamic way with the shahada. So now, for example, the mushrikeen, they will say, okay, you have to grip an animal, you have to slaughter it the Islamic way. What about an animal that is already dead for us, naturally dies? Then they say, if anything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has killed this animal for us. So it is more upon us that we eat from this animal. Because you are a human who is slaughtering. With this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made for this animal to die. He died a natural death. So if anything, we can eat this more. This was the logic that they were using. So it doesn't matter if it is not slaughtered, it is halal for us because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala killed it for us. You see, when somebody lacks knowledge, or if we are not studying this thing, some will then think, you know what you're saying is kind of true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala naturally allowed it to die. So if we slaughter it now, it should be fine for us. It's not like we slaughtered it and didn't say, La ilaha illallah. So what's wrong with it? Why? Logic. When something hits you with logic and you start understanding it with logic, it messes with your head. It takes you away from what is actually legislated. Legislated is that we slaughter by saying the shahada, the kalima. This is what is legislated. This is how you slaughter and this is how you make it halal. If you do not do it this way, then it is haram upon you. This is why when people all argue about stunning and all this kind of thing, as long as the animal does not die, the whole thing is when you are slaughtering the animal, that it is alive. If the animal has died before you slaughter, then it's haram for you. No matter what the situation, it is haram for you. So how you catch the animal? Because we know we are allowed to catch an animal, for example, with a hunting dog. It is allowed. With a hunting dog, you are allowed to catch an animal. The hunting dog may hurt the animal, may hurt it to an extent where it is coming towards dying. But if it is alive, when you capture it, then you are allowed to zabiyah, basically cut it, slaughter it, and it is halal for you. If it has died, then it is not halal for you in no matter what instances. This is where this whole argument comes, that they say when they stone, the animal dies. Not the whole HFA and HMC argument that they'll be arguing over. This is what they'll be arguing over, that they stun. One organization stuns, the other one doesn't. This is where the whole argument starts. This they are halal and haram, etc. وعن عدي بن حاتم أنه سمع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ هذه الآية اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله والمسيح ابن مريم وما أمروا إلا ليعبدون إلها واحدا لا إله إلا هو سبحانه عما يشركون فقلت له إن لسنا نعبدهم قال أليس تحرمون ما أحل الله فتحرمونه. The Adi ibn Hatim relates, I heard the Messenger ﷺ read this ayah. They, Jews and Christians, took their rabbis and their monks to be lords besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messiah son of Maryam, while they were commanded to worship none but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. None has the right to be worshipped but He, praise and glory be to Him, for above is He from having the partners they associate with Him. And Adi says, I said to Prophet ﷺ, verily we do not worship them. He replied, did they not make haram what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made halal? So you then made it haram. And did they not make halal what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made haram? And you therefore made it halal? I said yes. He said that is worshipping them. And Adi ibn Hatim, he was somebody who entered into Islam because he was a Christian. He was somebody who when he came to Medina, he had a very big cross around his neck. And he entered into Islam by seeing the characteristic of the Prophet ﷺ. That one day somebody came and asked the Prophet ﷺ a question, took him with him, and the way the Prophet ﷺ went with that person and answered his question, answered his query happily, this was the reason, the sabab that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used that brought him towards Islam. Why? Because he goes, this cannot be a ruler, because a ruler is somebody who wants to have his chest out, wants to show his might and position, but a slave person is taking the Prophet ﷺ away and he is going with them, meaning he is interacting with the slave, he is interacting with everyone around him, and he's been accepting and he's being nice to them and he's being caring to them. And this was the reason why Adi came into Islam. So when the Prophet ﷺ is saying, did they not, meaning when you were a Christian, when you were a non-Muslim, weren't those rabbis that you were following, were they not making the halal haram and the haram halal? Meaning, they were allowing alcohol. You know, in Christianity, alcohol is haram, pork is haram, but they were allowing it. They were making the haram halal, they're making the halal haram, and he accepts, yes, they were doing that. He goes, this is you making them your Lord. This is you making them your Lord. And this is why four desires, many of us will make the haram halal because we want it to please our desires and what we are wanting and what we want to do. We will make any excuse to make the haram halal. We know something is legislated, we know something is there in the Quran, in the Sunnah, it is haram, but still we will find the excuse to make it halal because of our desires. And this we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us away from that, because it's something which was going to destroy us and take us out of the fold of Islam without even knowing. So the relevance of this hadith to the chapter is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deemed their taking of their rabbis and monks as lords besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as shirk, as per the end of the ayah in Surah Tawbah. The Prophet ﷺ explicitly stated that following them in prohibiting what is lawful and vice versa is worshipping them. And this, you see, when people look at from the outside, they say, oh, well, this is for the Christians and the Jews, and this is there, and their rabbis, and what do we have? This is why the statements that I was saying, that the Imams, the way we follow them, the way we accept what the Shaykh is saying on face value, this is why we say, whenever somebody says something to you, always say, Hatu burhanakum in kuntum sadiqin. Tell me your evidence if you are truthful. When you are coming to make something halal and haram, or you're coming with them that this is halal, this is haram, bring your evidence. Prove that it is halal, prove that it is haram. And always be skeptical with this. Don't take stuff on face value. No matter who it is, never take nothing on face value. Always question it or go and check up on it. This is why many people fall into issues because of the matter of taqleed. Blind following what their sheikh say without questioning, without asking for evidences. And this is why they fall into so many pits. For example, blind following on the Quran is a creation of Allah, not the kalam of Allah. Because look, when we say the four Imam, Imam Abu Hanifa was born around 80 Hijri, right? The last Sahabi died 120 roughly Hijri. So they overlapped. But all the reports that Imam Abu Hanifa studied under a Sahaba, they're all weak. So, okay, he did not study under a Sahabi. However, he studied under a Tabi'een. He studied under the next generation after the Sahaba. He studied under them. He was a part of them. So he has knowledge. But fiqh, he was in Iraq. He did not have all the knowledge of fiqh. And even the fuqaha, they say he did not have much knowledge of hadith. He wasn't very knowledgeable. However, when it comes to aqidah, his aqidah aligns with ours. Imam Shafi's aqidah aligns with ours. Imam Malik's aqidah aligns with ours. So the other side, the Naqshbandi, Sufi, Brelvis, Deobandis, their base of their aqidah is Sufism. They all go back to the same book eventually, a Sufi book. They're all about their peers and the awliyas and etc. They are the ones who they derive the knowledge from. If you go back to Imam Abu Hanifa, he says the Quran is kalamullah, the speech of Allah, but the rest negate speech of Allah. So Allah does not speak. Allah did not speak to Musa directly the way we talk with nutak, with speech. They negate that. So this is for a person now when the Imam is saying, for example, Allah does not speak. The Quran is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is when you question. Ask the question. Give me the evidence. If they provide you with an evidence, khair. If they cannot provide you with the evidence, then it's your duty to check. Why? Because you are making the halal haram and the haram halal. So I think we'll leave it there, for that chapter is done as well now. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us our major and minor sins, bring us closer to the deen, and fix our aqeedah. Wa ma alayna illa al-balagh al-mubin.